Go. Well, that was stupid of me. I put the mic on. I didn't turn the mic on. Well, now, that's a new one. That's definitely a new one for me. So sorry about that. I will get this figured out sooner or later. But let me get my windows oriented in their correct way. Sorry about that. Hey, Slice Me Nice. Good morning. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I didn't have the battery pack turned on. I got it all set up, put it on, and so much stuff to think about in the morning. So let me get all my windows lined up in a nice place here so I can see chats coming in from the different locations. And then I can get into stuff. All right, there we go. 1, 2, 3 windows. All good. And I think everything's muted on my end in the computer, so you don't have to hear it twice. Oh, so what's going on? A couple things in the shop. I was working on a sign, and I was trying to do inlays, and I did a test. I think I showed this on Friday, but I did a test where basically what I do is I carve a pocket. I don't know that this is turned on. Hang on, I got a camera check here. Whoa. What happened to my thing here? Camera check. I don't think this is turned on, so let me turn this camera on. And anyway, so I was doing this test, and there we go. I start by carving a pocket, which is basically where you remove the material from the letters, basically, and then you carve out of another piece of wood, you carve the letters like this. You carve these letters out, and then you insert them into their pockets, and you glue them in, and you get something that looks like this. And that turned out pretty well. So this is a piece of mahogany, and these are cut out of a piece of cherry. And so they look pretty good. I was pretty happy with that, right? It's just my last name on there. I'll put it on a desk or something. It looks nice. Excuse me. Anyway, so that was a test. And then they were not super tight in there. They weren't a really tight fit. These have been cleaned up because I took a mahogany dust and mixed it with some CA glue. I put CA glue in the cracks around the edges and then rubbed in the dust, and it filled in nicely. And then it gets, once you get it flattened down, it looks pretty nice. But I wanted to see if I could get a tighter fit. So I started making, there's in my CNC carving program, which is easel, because I use a X-Carve from Inventables, and the X-Carve uses their default program is called easel. You can use other programs, but their program that they give you is called easel. It's a cloud-based program. It's pretty simple to use. It actually has an inlay program in it that you can kind of take your design, and then you go to their little tools and you say inlay, and it turns it into the two different things you need to carve. One is the pocket, and then it does the outline of that thing, and it sets them up according to your original design, right? So in this case, it was the letters. It took those letters and said, okay, give me a pocket and give me the outlines to make the letters, to cut out the letters to go in. And you can adjust that. There's a tolerance setting on there. The default is 3. That was a little loose. I watched one of their videos, and it had a tolerance of 2 on their video, but that was for, not for an X-Carve, but for a Carvey. So I said, well, they did 2. Let me try 2. I did a 2 and was rather disappointed, a tolerance of 2, because it doesn't fit at all. So these letters do not fit inside. That's what this is. This was carved, this pocket was carved, and these letters were carved with the tolerance set at 2. And they're just too large by about, I would say if you shrunk this down by 1/2 millimeter and shrunk this in by about 1/2 millimeter, or shrunk this out by 1/2 millimeter, they would fit. But for whatever reason, that tolerance of 0.002, not good. The tolerance of 0.003, better. What I needed to do was some tests where instead of doing the whole carve, which takes like this right here took a half an hour to carve that pocket because I'm using a 1/16 bit. It's really tiny. And anyway, the carving takes a long time. So I should have created just a single letter and done it that way. It would take me a lot less time to carve that out and then carve the corresponding piece, the insert, and test it out. And I could have done different tolerances, like instead of 0.003, I could have gone 0.0025, right? Or 0.0275 or something like that, where I could try some different tolerances and see which one is actually going to be perfect. That being said, I was like, you know what? 3 is okay because I can always fill these with dust. That'll be fine. So I carved the thing that I wanted to carve, and the pockets came out great. They look wonderful. And then I said, well, you know, I need to make some inserts. The first thing I tried to do was with, it was walnut. I took a piece of walnut and I shaved it down to a thin veneer of about 1.3 inches, or not 1.3, 0.13 inches. And I was like, you know, that looks pretty good. Let me just double stick tape that whole thing down so that they would stay stuck as it carved them out. But for whatever reason, it didn't, and it shifted, and it started screwing it up. And I was like, well, damn. So I screwed up the letters. So I said, well, let me try a thicker piece and just carve down in there, and then I'll run it through my bandsaw and just have those letters pop out. But for some reason, it just went crazy on the carving. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I don't want to ruin this, because this is a gift and I don't want to show it off yet. I ended up changing what I was doing here. But anyway, I'm going to show you some letters here. Hopefully you'll see this. If you look at the top of that T, do you see how it's curved? It's like it's not straight. It's like it's not straight. And that's not the only thing that happened. I mean, some of this stuff, like this right here, is supposed to be a straight line, but look at the little jog it made there at the end. It's like, it's crazy, right? And so it really just, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was because it was a thin bit and this was thick, hard wood. I don't know what the case was. But anyway, so that got ruined. So I was like, oh man, this is not good, because I have a timetable on this too where it kind of needs to get done. So that didn't happen. So I ended up doing my old method where I take it and I basically shellac the pocket area. So I'll take this whole thing and spray this all down with shellac, and then I tape off just the area and leave open the area where the letters are, and then I spray paint it black. The shellac keeps the paint in the pocket. It doesn't let it. So the shellac just basically makes a wood barrier. It's kind of like a sanding sealer. And so when I spray the paint actually doesn't soak into the wood and it become uneven. It just lays evenly in the pocket on top of the shellac. So shellac is a great barrier for stuff. It's a great sanding sealer. It's a great top coat. It's just a really kind of a miraculous little thing in itself. But anyway, so I did that, and then I take the tape off, and then I sand off any extra black that is between the letters and such. It looks fine. I then took a torch, because I hadn't tried this before, and I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun. So I took a torch and torched the wood grain on the top just ever so slightly. It really kind of makes some of the grain pop out and look good without being like a piece of firewood. So I did that, and then I just have been lacquering the whole thing for the past day. So that was pretty much what I did yesterday. It was not as productive as I thought. I thought I would be able to knock that out in a timely manner. It didn't happen. What did happen was I actually had some walnut left over from that piece that I'd cut the end off to make the veneer out of and such, that I was trying to make the letters from. So this is the rest of that walnut, which is a pretty piece of walnut. And I decided, well, since I've already started cutting on this, I might as well go ahead and cut this down to a 3-inch width because that's what the saw was already set up for. And on Monday, we started working with these cherry boards right at the end and cutting these into 3-inch width. And I think what I did for these was I started looking at getting these sized to use for my next project. And that's kind of where we're at today, is I've got these things basically just cut to a 3-inch width. I didn't do anything else to them. Well, I take that back. The first thing I did was I took the wide board because they were rough on each side. So this was like a 10-inch wide board, and it was rough cut on each side. So all I did was I ran that through my jointer, the edge of it, just to get a straight flat side. And then I pushed it through the saw. That gave me a reference to put against the saw fence. And then I could get 3-inch wide strips. These are going to be less than 3 inches wide when they're done, at least most of them are. And I decided I'm going to make 301 bases out of them. And you're like, well, what's a 301 base? Glad you asked. I'll show you what a 301 base is. I got some requests. I did a 301 bases in some other different woods, and I thought they turned out really nice, but I did get some requests for some 301 bases in a different, more traditional dark wood finish. So I will show you what a 301 base is, because a 301 is a type of machine. Let me see if I've got this set up right. So I'm going to switch to, I need to switch to here and then switch to here, I think. Oh wait, that's not it. No, that's not it. Hang on, right here, that's it. Let's see if this is it. Does this pull it up? There we go. Okay, so this is a 301. And let me see, I'm gonna go in here and I should be able to switch between them. So this type of machine, there's two different types, two different sizes. I'm not a sewing machine expert. I leave that to my wife and her friends. But this is the long bed version. There's also a short bed version. So I make a base that accommodates both versions. Can I go backwards here? There we go. Let me go back to the beginning of these photos and show you. Okay, so here is a short bed version. There we go. So this is the short bed version of that machine. It is a 301 short bed. It has a little flip up bed right in front of where the needle goes right here. This little part right here is a bed extension, and this is the short bed extension. So what I did was make a base. Now the long bed version actually goes all the way out, and you saw that was the black machine. It has a longer bed extension, but the rest of the machine is all the same dimensions. It's just the length of that bed. So what I did was I made a base that accommodates both a short bed, and you can see right here what I did was I actually put a piece of wood up here to extend that out. It's just another extension for the short bed, right? And if I can, there we go. So there's the short bed version right there. And I did really cool. It was like, you know, different woods. I think that is quarter sawn sycamore along with mahogany on the ends. Looks really pretty. And you can see the bed lifts up. You can take that little lid out. It gives you storage up front. So kind of cool, right? There's the little extension. And of course, it's got my little handles on the side that I put in all my bases. And then that's nothing in there, so you can see it comes up. But if you want, if you've got a long bed, you can just ditch the little wooden extension lid that I have in there and place your long bed in there, and it fits all the way. So you don't need the little extension thing that I made. So basically this base accommodates both sizes. So I don't have to make a short bed version, a long bed version. I make one version. I include the little lid. So if you've got a short bed, you put the lid in there. If you don't have a short bed, if you get the long bed, you just put your machine in there and you're good to go. So that's what I made. And it turned out really well. But like I said, not everybody wants the contrasting wood. I mean, I think it looks awesome, but I'm a woodworker. So my opinion may vary from somebody else's opinion. But anyway, but that's what it is. And you'll notice there's a little notch right here on the side, and there's one actually on this side too. That's because the, let me see if it shows it. The, right here on the machine, there's a hinge for that lid to lift up, and it actually protrudes down further than the edge of the machine. So I needed to make those notches to, there you go. So you can see when this thing is flipped up, that actually goes down inside. And what I did was I cut those notches in there, and then that accommodates the lid actually flipping up. You need to get this up because this is where your bobbin goes for your under thread, the thread that goes in the bottom of the machine. Like I said, not my specialty. I just make the bases for them. But anyway, you can see there's one with the lid on. So it looks like that. Anyway, so that is a 301 base. And that's what we're going to make. But we're going to make that in regular like cherry, and then we'll stain it, and it'll just be a dark version. Because like I said, I've had some people who've asked. And I just sold my last one. I had 3 of those. I just sold the last one on Monday, I think. So I'm now out of stock of 301 bases. And I still have 2 standard size bases. And I have 8 of the 3/4 size bases that we finished up last week. But they're just sitting there chilling inside the house, being stinky as all of their finishes cure, before I can bring them back out here and start lacquering them, because I gotta let the stains or the oils or all the things I finish them, I gotta let them cure before I get to it. So let me hang on. I gotta move my window back here. I just had to make sure that you all could see what I wanted to. It's a little confusing because I've got a monitor over here that I'm looking at what you're seeing for the most part. But when I switch to that web sharing thing, it shows what's on the screen. So I have to switch. And so I need to go to my computer to make sure you're seeing all of that. But anyway, that's what I'm going to be making is the 301 bases. They are not as tall as my other bases. So my other bases are about 3 inches tall. The 301 bases are only, and hang on, I have some dimensions here. I have plans. When I was figuring out how to do this, I just kind of drew out this set of plans like this, and it just kind of has all my rough dimensions and such on there. But they are 2.5 inches tall. You can see there's my little cutout right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'll move this in. So, so right here, this is the little cutout area right here. And this is basically just showing where the dovetails were, but I'm probably not going to do dovetails on these. But anyway, it gives me the overall width of the piece of wood for the side. It gives me the overall length for the pieces for the front and the back. The locations for the notches, not a big deal. And I can see the actual space in here, like the machine. This from this corner to this corner needs to be 19.25 inches. That is a 1/4 inch shallower on each side because these are 3/4 inch thick pieces of wood. I know that is I don't need to write down 3/4 inch thick because I know that. But anyway, that's my basic dimensions there. And then like right here, this is 13 3/8 inches to this line, which is where these hinges go. So I have a basic set of plans. The dimensions aren't really of concern to you because unless you're going to be making one of these, it doesn't really matter. But to me, it matters because it gives me a basic foundation for where I need to start with in terms of milling up my wood. And was it last week? I went to the lumber store, hardwood dealer, and bought a whole bunch of stuff. So I've got some cherry here, and I figured, well, let's go ahead and knock some of these out. I took some dimensions, figured out how many I could actually fit in my in the supply that I've cut up here, and I actually have more of this walnut. This is just all that I've cut up for right now because it was left over from that base. So I'll see what I can get out of here. I might be able to get maybe 2 out of this. Maybe 1 base out of this. I haven't measured this one yet. I kind of did rough measurements on these last week, So if you were here on not last week, on Monday, if you were here on Monday near the end, I kind of did some roughed out measurements on these and just made a mark here so you can see these letters on here. Maybe you can see them. That kind of just gives me an idea of which side goes to which one, so I could kind of get the biggest yield out of them. 20.5 by 2.5 by 3. So, trying to see. So that is everything marked C and D. And then so I was going to do 2 different things here. I was going to make standard size bases. I think that's what I was going to do. I was going to make a couple of standard size bases. And then maybe? Oh, no. So I've got this other project that I was going to do too. So hang on. Let me show you this. I was like, wait, that's not right. So I was going to make a couple of 301 bases. I was going to make a standard base. And then I've got this crazy thing right here that belongs to a friend. And I'm going to make a base for this to sit into. So this is going to get a base as well. So I was like, wait, what did I measure out there? But I forgot. I'm going to add a base for this. I'm going to make some 301 bases, and we'll see what else I have wood for. But that's kind of on my agenda right now. But that aside, everything I do with 3/4 inch wood. That's just kind of my standard size that I use. It makes everything easy in terms of my measurements and everything else. So whenever I'm milling up wood, hang on a second. Let me just grab, so whenever I'm milling wood, you'll always see me with pieces of wood that are like this size. Now this one got used for some other stuff and testing and whatever, but this is an offcut. It still started off life before it got all these marks and stuff on here as a 3/4 inch piece of wood. And that's nice because if I do have extra 3/4 inch pieces, sometimes I can use those scrap 3/4 in another project because they're all sized the same size. If I had 1/2 inch and then 3/4 and 1 inch, and it would be hard for me to go back and forth between projects, but scrap for one project can end up being used as part of another. To get down to that 3/4 inches though, well, I got to take this big fat board, which is about 1 inch, because this is 4/4 lumber. So it is 1 inch thick, which means it needs to go on a diet. It needs to get thinner on both sides. And then it will also lose a little of this weight here because we do not need, for the 301 and for that base that is for that machine over there, what do I call that? That's a white. For the white machine, not the color white, the name white. But for those machines, everything's going to be about 2.5 inches. So I just randomly cut these at 3 inches. That gives me a lot of leeway for getting my board slimmed down. And cutting them to width is no big deal. That's like the last thing. And I just run them through the table saw really quick, and then that gives me my width on those. So that's my height. So that's really easy. But right now, what we need to do is we need to start getting these things flattened down, which means this is one of my favorite things to do, but it's, I don't know, not necessarily my favorite thing to share with you, because it's kind of like sanding. So when I'm milling my wood up, it's basically a lot of repetitive processes. I'm going to go to the jointer first, and I'm going to joint one of these sides is going to get flattened. Now these are pretty flat for the most part, so that should be a pretty quick process to get these flattened. These were really pretty decent boards, so there's not a lot of wavering in their cut lines, just a little bit, but pretty nicely done by the sawmill. And the way these were dried, they're pretty stable and pretty straight. So I got to get one flat side. Then I'll take that flat side, put it against the fence. I'll turn it flat against the fence, and I'll get one flat edge. And that will in turn give me a flat side and a 90-degree flat side on this way. So I get one 90-degree angle. Once you get one 90-degree angle, I can take it over to my planer. I can then plane the other side parallel to my jointer flattened side. So this side's flat under here, then this side will be flat. And that's why you need the flat side here, because the planer just mirrors whatever's on the bottom. So if you've got a flat side here, you'll get a flat side here. They'll be parallel to each other. That gives you a nice square surface board. And then I can cut that last side off on the table saw. That'll be square and parallel to the first side that was done on the jointer. Then I'll have a surfaced on 4 side square piece of wood that I can use for my project. Did that make sense? I don't know. It's kind of a long process, but that's why I don't have a ton of boards here to do. I've got, I got 8 boards to do to start with. And I figured that's probably good enough. So let's go ahead. I cleaned out the jointer already from all of the sawdust and such. I actually emptied my dust collector. So we can go ahead and start working on these boards. Typically what I will do when I'm planing is I will just plane one board, get it flat, do the edge of it, and then move on to the next board. When I start planing, I did say jointing, right? The jointer, I get one side, I will flatten. I'll just make repetitive runs, get it flattened, and then joint the edge, and then I will move on to the next board. Once I start planing, because I'm lowering that planer head down, I start feeding all the boards in one after the other, and then I just make one lowering and then keep lowering and then keep feeding. So I will do one after the other on the planer, but on the jointer, I just do one until it's complete because it's easier that way. Now let's see, I've got a camera pointing at the planer right now, or at the jointer. I'm gonna get those things switched in my head all day long. I do need to get my ears, because while it's not the loudest thing in the world, it does, after a while, it can be a little much. And what I'm gonna do, the nice thing is that these, because they are rough on one side, you can see that that is a very rough, now the edge is smooth, and this edge, well, even though it's black from table saw burning, it's still fairly smooth. So all I need to do is get one of these rough sides to be flattened. And what I'm going to look for is any sort of, I look to see how straight the board is. I need to see which way the grain is running, because you want the grain going downhill. I'm going to put this side right here, I'm going to put that down. And I'm going to run it through this direction. So it's going to feed through just like this. It's going to feed through because it's curved just a little bit like this. You don't want to have, if you're bored, you don't want smiley face, you don't want the corners up, you want the frowny side down, right? Because if it's curved up, well, it's going to rock as you're putting it through here. If the corners are down, then it'll cut that corner off, but then it'll slide through evenly and then cut the other corner off. If you have it like this, it'll rock and you'll never get it. It'll take you forever to get it flat. So always do it that way. I have push pads. I always use push pads with this when I'm flat planing. If I'm doing an edge, I don't use the push pads. I do use them when I'm going through flat. Let me check my depth of cut here. It's fairly aggressive. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I don't think I need it quite that aggressive for these boards because they look pretty good. So let me go ahead and start flattening this one and we'll see what it looks like. just to show you really quickly, you can see on the end of this how it's starting to cut down on this end. There's nothing being cut down here in the middle. And then it starts to pick up and cut down on this end as well. So you can see that it's got a little bit of a sway to it, a little bit of a curve. And the big thing that I like to pay attention to is that curve. When I'm pushing through, I don't push down really hard on that board. Because if you do, I mean, I can flex this wood. If I do it, I mean, it's subtle, but it'll flex. If I push down in there, I'm going to get it cleaned off, but it's not going to be flat. It'll be, because when I'll take the board off, it'll have a little bit of a bend to it because I was pushing down hard on there. So I try not to overly push down on the boards. I just let the cutting head do the work. Okay, and that pretty much is flat from one end to the other now. I don't see any of that rough sawn area on here. So that's what we're after. Yeah, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this flat area right here, and I'm going to put that against the fence, and then I'm going to run this through, and I'm going to flatten this edge. Now, because this has already been done once, it's already been flattened once, probably to run against the saw. I can't tell if I'm getting, like when I run it through, I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell if it was getting a nice clean cut on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pin and I'm going to run it through like this. And put a squiggly line on there like that. Once that line's gone, I know that this has been squared to this edge. The other thing you can do is take a pencil, if you can ever find a pencil, you know, in your very messy shop. And I'm going to draw a little pigtail on here. And that pigtail, you can see the little pigtail right here. That pigtail lets me know that this is the flattened side. And then when I get this done, I'll draw a little triangle or a little arrowhead pointing to that pigtail. And that lets me know that this is the squared corner right here. So that's how I'll know that. But anyway, let's get this squared up and then we can move on to the next board. And just real quickly, you can see it removes some of that pin, but a lot of it's still there. So it's like right here. So it's not square to this face. And that's why I put the pin on there so that I have a good indicator. Because just looking at the bare wood that's already been run through a jointer once, you'd never know that it wasn't square. Almost. Okay, and now all of that pin has been removed. And if I take a square, put that on here, I get a really nice, perfect kind of a, there you go. So very square. So this corner right here is 90 degrees. It's very square. And that's my starting place, right? That's where I start from. And then everything else comes from those two edges. Got a pencil that wants to keep falling apart here. There we go. All right, and I'm going to draw that little arrowhead on here just so that I know that this is my 90-degree corner. Because once I start planing, I might think this is the square side. It should be, but this is the one that I know is square right here. So I'm just going to take this board now and move it over, and then I'll start with the next one. What time is it? 11:38. Okay, hang on. I have to step away for just one moment. Give me just a moment. I'll be right back. Okay, thank you for that. I had to grab a beverage because a little dry. It's warm in the shop today. It's warm outside. Like most places, it is cooking right now outside. So, all right, I'm just gonna go back to the longboards first. And I'm just gonna check these out for straightness again. I'm looking for trying to be the straightest that I can get. And then if it's not, I want to make sure that I have the curve with the corners down. I think that will work. And then I'm looking for the grain to see what is the best way to run this through. Because you want, I think this will work. Okay. I mean, optimally, the grain just is doing a perfect dive down, but cherry kind of tends to undulate a little bit, so not always easy to figure out which way to run this through the machine. But I do my best to minimize tear out as I'm going. Turning my computer back on here for a second, hang on. Just to make sure that I'm not missing any comments or anything. Okay, back to it. Okay, and pigtail and my little arrowhead. And this one cleaned up nice. This didn't have a lot of, this one had all the burning on there, so probably didn't need to make those pen marks on there, but just to be consistent, do it that way. And on to our next one. Like I said, just looking to see. I think this will be my down face, and it'll run through like this. Okay, that's the first set. Um, and we have nice nice, flat, square, even board right here. And I can move on to the next set and do those. I might as well just work on with these. I've got the walnut here. So I might as well take a walnut board here and get it done. Before I do that though, I am going to clean out my dust chute in here. It gets clogged. It does not, because I don't have a big 6-inch dust collecting hose. I generally just clean this out as I go. So give me a second to clean out all of this. All right. Yeah, I mean, if I had a large dust collection system, I could hook it up and it would do a pretty good job of dust extraction. But since I don't, I just have the smaller hose. It doesn't work as well. Hang on a second. I got to clean this off. What'll happen is as the chute starts to get clogged up, all that dust and everything kind of keeps pushing further and further up into those blades. And then it's just not as clean as you want it to be. So every now and then I have to make sure that I get that chute cleaned out and clear all the dust tips away. Excuse me. All right, now we can move on to the walnut. I mean, the thing is, and they're not very big boards, but when you consider I'm taking little tiny chips across the entire width of this thing all the way down, it creates a lot more dust debris than you think it would. What do we got here? Yeah. Kind of undulating too, but I think I'm going to go through this way, like this. That should work. That's pretty flat right there. Okay. So no rocking. Well, but if you see, it's got this little lip right here. Actually, hang on, let me see. It's got that big lip right there. Let me see how this edge looks here. Okay, this edge is down, so I'm going to go this way. It does have a bit of a kick out on that one end there. and do this side. Okay, if you saw me, like, I marked this side up first, and I was going to flatten this side, and then when I looked closer at it, I was like, well, do I really want to do that? Because I'll show you, there's a knot right here. See this knot right on this edge right here? And it kind of comes down here. Well, if you remember, I said these are 3.5 inch, or these are 3-inch wide boards, so they're cut 3 inches on the bandsaw, on the table saw, but they're going to be shortened down to about 2.5 inches. I'm going to lose 1/2 inch off of here, which means if I made this my squared edge, then this would be the edge I'd be trimming on the table saw later. I don't want that. I want this to be the edge that goes against the fence later, and I want this to get trimmed off because this knot will not be great for what I'm doing. And there's a couple little occlusions and stuff in here. So I can just trim all that off when I get ready to make my final board. So that's why you saw me flip it from this side to this side and say, oh, this is the better side. This side would have been easier to mill up due to grain direction, but this side actually is going to be better as my final squared side, because what will happen is as I run this through the table saw to get it down to my final width, I will put this squared side on the flat side against the table saw table, and this side goes against the fence, and then I'm trimming off whatever is left over here. So that's why it just made sense for me to switch it so I can get rid of these occlusions. There's just a bunch of little stuff. This was, what do they call this stuff? This was not premium walnut. I mean, it's really pretty, but because it has knots and stuff in it, I got it for a much cheaper price, which is why I chose it, because it was only like $4 something a board foot as opposed to like $11 a board foot, which would be for your premium walnut. So my thought is I can work around things like knots and stuff. Now, if there's a knot in the middle of the board, like right here, there's a knot. So I'm gonna have to do something with that. I might fill it with epoxy, and you know, it'll just be a feature, if you will. You can do a little feature, you know, quote marks there. But there is another one of these up here. Right here, there's another knot in this one right here. You can see that knot right there. And it's not very deep. So this part will probably get trimmed off when I go to do it. So I want to make sure that this is the edge that gets trimmed up. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do that right now just so I don't forget. I'm going to make my marks here. I'm not going to do this part yet because I haven't flattened the wide side yet, but it doesn't matter. As long as I know that this is, now I know that this is the side that, having looked at the board and looked at the wood, this is the side I want to use as my flat side because it doesn't have any knots or anything along this edge. There's the big one in the middle. I got to do something with that, but for the rest of it, it's pretty clean. And the reason I like this is it's got really nice grain in here. This is a really pretty board. If you look at this one, I mean, this has got some beautiful walnut grain in there. So even though this was not a premium piece of walnut, it has the makings of a beautiful, you know, walnut item when it gets done. All right, now I just need to figure out which is my screwy side, and I think I just figured that out. I think it's this side, and I got to figure out which way my wood grain is going so I can drag this thing through here appropriately. I think it's this way. And is that down? Yeah. Okay, here we go. This. And that actually cleaned up and did really well. Now, before I'm done with this board and move on to the other cherry, I'm just making my mark here. Here's my little pigtail and my little arrow. I want to do something to this board before I move on. And that is with this knot right here. Because it has a knot, and because I'm going to send this over to the planer next, I need to address that first while I've got some time, and I'll explain what I mean in just a second here. So hang on a second. I'm going to walk over here. Let me take these ears off for a moment, and I'm going to grab my black CA glue and my instant bond spray. So let me explain what's going on and what I want to try to accomplish here. The next step in milling this stuff is that it goes through the planer. So because it's going through the planer, it uses this side we just did on the jointer as a reference side. That side goes down, and then the planer works on this side, the rough side of the wood, and then you get it lowered down to the thickness you need. But because I have a knot here, and I don't know how deep that knot goes. That knot, it doesn't come out the other side, but it could be a little bit deeper than, than the 1/4 of an inch that we're going to take off of this thing, right? So, and the other thing is, because those blades are coming through here, they can have a tendency to just pull and scalp and gouge any knots. It can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some CA glue, whoop, and throw the lid of it down on the ground. It's not what I was going to do. Anyway, so this is black medium CA glue. It's from Star Bond. It's pretty nice. And got a nice shot here. what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it into the open areas of this in hopes of creating basically a little bit of a solid surface so that when this goes through the planer, it is not going to chip out. So I'm just kind of getting it and working it into the cracks there. And I need to get it to settle inside the cracks. Now this stuff is great for, especially with walnut. This is good stuff because you can put this in, you know, little cracks and crevices and such, and it does a really nice job of kind of just blending in because walnut is such a dark wood anyway. Put a little bit up here. But I know that because this is a planer and it has flat blades and not an angled helix head kind of thing, it can definitely rip out this area if it's not secured. So all I'm doing is I am just using the CA glue and I'm going to secure that in here. And I'm going to let that cure while I do the rest of these boards, and that will hopefully cure by the time I get ready to do this. I can save this board for last as I pass it through, and it should be okay. But I'm just kind of filling this void with some CA, which will hopefully kind of get it cemented down there. I think that's pretty good. It's pretty flattened out now, and I need a little bit of paper towel here. Hang on. Oh, here's a little bit of paper towel right here, just to wipe the tip of this off. Kind of keeps it from getting too crusty here. And then put the lid back on it. But yeah, this Star Bond comes in a, you can get it comes in clear, obviously, but black is really great, especially the medium thick for filling. It dries, what they say, jet black, high impact rubber toughened formula, fills voids in dark wood. There you go. Their words, not mine. Now, I have this Titebond instant accelerator. You can use any accelerator on this stuff, but what this does, like right now, it would be all over my fingers. If I spray this down, that creates an instant cure of, well, the stuff on top. So if I touch this, it doesn't come off of my finger. See, it's clean. So the top part is now done. It's still going to be curing on the inside because we're just going to say it's baking inside. But I'm going to leave this set, and then hopefully by the time we get to the planer, that'll be cured to the point where that big knot won't come flying out. So that's why I said I wanted to address that now, because it just makes sense to take care of those type of anomalies while we've got the opportunity. So there's another one down here, a little tiny one down here, right here. But this one's on our flattened side, and right here, there's a little tiny one here and here. I'm not worried about this because A, this is, let me just check my mark. Yeah, this is the side that's going to get cut off right here. So I'm going to lose about a ½ an inch here. And then anything left in here, I'll just do this same process afterwards, but I'll clean it up with a sander, not with the planer. The planer is my big fear because it uses those blades and it's chipping. And you don't want it to grab that knot and flip it out. That would be bad. Very bad. Very, very bad indeed. So, now that we've taken care of the bad, we can move back to just regular boards. And this looks like this way maybe. And then find my grain direction on here because we want to go downhill. And now get back to jointing these cherry boards. And let me check my dust here. Just clear the dust chute. Clear the chute. Doesn't take long, but makes a big difference. All right, now we can get back to this. So I've got 3 more boards here of cherry to joint down, and then we will be done with the jointing, and we can move on to some planer action. Anything exciting going on here? Nothing that I care about. All right, moving on. This side. So this last one was kind of a problem. And it's just something that you kind of have to listen to your tools as you're using them, because the blades make a certain noise when they're cutting. You probably couldn't hear it because the noise cancellation was on for my mic, but the blade makes a certain noise when it's cutting and when it's not cutting wood. And as I was doing this edge, what I was noticing was that I wasn't getting any noise up front, but I got the noise all the way through the back. And even though sometimes if you're pushing down, you can get an unnatural cut where it'll do a little pivot thing. And I think that's what I did. So I drew a line on here because I knew it wasn't cutting in this first half. And I kept pushing it through until that line just kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter and disappeared. So that now I know that I've got a very straight edge all along this thing. But it definitely pays to listen to your tools. For one thing, you can tell that it's cutting. Like I can tell when I'm flattening, I can tell if it's cutting all the way across the board or if there's a bit on here that is shallower and not getting cut. You can hear that pitch change as the blade's cutting, from cutting across the surface to, oh, now it's just cutting part of the board, to now it's back to cutting the whole surface. You can hear that. So a lot of times it's just easier and faster to listen to your tools than it is to turn the board over and check it every single time. That being said, I got that all squared away. I had to shave a little bit more off of that one than I wanted to, but that's okay. That's why I cut them oversized in the first place, right? I cut them to 3 inches, and they need to be 2.5, and that's a good reason why, is because I don't know if you can see, but on these two boards right here, because I had to shave so much off of that one, this one is a little bit lower than this one, right? So when I get ready to cut these down to their actual width, this one just won't have as much cut off. But I have enough leeway in there, and that was my plan. Give myself enough leeway. I've got plenty of wood to work with, and I can move forward. This is hopefully going to be dry enough by the time we get to it. I'm ready to start pulling out the planer, getting it set up, and using that to do step 3 of 4. So step 5. But generally, step 1 is getting a flat face. Step 2 is getting a 90-degree edge to that face, right? So this one is completely perpendicular to this one. Step 3 is to now get a second flat face using this first flattened face as a reference in the planer. We'll plane this down to the thickness, which will be 3/4 of an inch. So that's step 3. Step 4 will be to put this back on the table saw and cut these down to the exact width that we need for making our base or whatever we're making. Put this the right side up. So anyway, that's the basically 4 steps to get surfaced on 4 sides. And staying hydrated. Very important when it's 80 degrees in your shop. You need to stay hydrated. I have a little bit of dust. I'm going to clean that up, and then I'm going to set up the planer. I already have it flipped over on my cart, so all I need to do is pull it into position, hook up the power and the dust collection, and then we can kind of get that set up to go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is slide this out of the way. And no, I do not have a mobile stand on my jointer. I wish, but it actually takes up a pretty small footprint without one. And if it had a mobile stand on there, it would actually need a bigger footprint to fit in here. So while it would be a little bit easier for me to move, I still find that, there we go. One more. It's worth the effort as long as I don't pull my back out to just keep it like this. A little more dust that collected underneath. Let me get that clean, and I'll move the planer into place. Okay, planer is coming out. Now these are not extremely long boards on the planer. So I'm wondering if I should put my, I've got a roller to set up if I want to. They're pretty, you know, I'm going to set the roller up just to have it here. And I'm going to push this back a little bit. I don't need it right up next to it, but I'm going to put the roller out, and then we'll give that a run. Just in case these boards are a little long, I don't have to just run over to the other end of it and catch them. I do need to up this. And then what I can do is I will check the height of that. Let me get this all the way in here and raised. I'll take one of these boards that are flat, and then we will check the height of that roller. See, because it's going to hit it right now. You don't want it hitting it and rocking it. You probably can't see that. Let me widen you out just a little bit here. So there you go. So there's the roller stand over here to the side, right here. And like I said, we don't want it where it does this. We want it to roll smoothly over top of that. So I do need to make an adjustment. Also, I'm going to adjust the bottom of this just a little bit here to get it to be firm. And then I'm going to lower it down just a hair. This is just a little Harbor Freight special kind of thing here. I didn't spend a lot of money on this. It's a little bit high. I didn't spend a lot of money on it, maybe 40 bucks or something, $35. But it does a nice job of just catching those boards. You can see it just catches those boards. Here's the roller right here. So it just gives a little bit more support when they're coming off and keeps them from dropping or tipping up. And then as that longboard shoots out, it won't fall to the floor. Like this is all the way out from this end. It keeps it from, once it's past that last drive roller, it keeps it from falling on the floor. So if I need to spend another second on the other end, feeding a board in, I still have time to come over and catch this one. Now I'm going to move this over just a little bit. So it should be still just a little high. I'm going to bring it down just a hair, just a tiny bit more. And I just do it by touch. It's not any, there we go. You want it to just barely skim the top and turn that roller, but you don't want it pushing into that roller to where it tips the roller and makes your wood, that's bad. But I think this is a good spot for it right here. I think we're in a good place. Now what I have to do is set up the beginning height. And I'm not sure, most of these boards are about the same width. So I think if I just set one of these cherries up, they'll all be about the same. So to get a starting, just a kind of a starting spot there. Very loud vehicle out front. I may not plane these down all the way for you. You may not need to watch that whole process. But what I've got is my power. I've got my vacuum hooked in, and it's right here on the edge. See, there's a little port, so it sucks dust out, so-so. It's not the best. Then I've got power coming in, and I have to run this off of a different circuit. So this power comes off of a different circuit than the power that the dust collector's on, because if they were both trying to run at the same time, I would pop a fuse just like that. My walnut board is going to go last. So I've got it set over here, and then hopefully it will survive. The one thing I want to do is look at feed direction. So I need to make my boards, you don't want the grain going this way. You want the grain going this way. And that's because the blade on this is coming around and scooping, right? If the grain was facing up in this direction, well, it's going to catch that grain and tear it, okay? So it'll tear, hopefully you'll see that. So if the grain is going in this direction, as that blade comes by and scoops little pieces out, it'll grab this grain and pull it up, and then that's when you get tear out, bad, or chip out. So if the grain's going this direction, basically all you're doing is cutting the top of it off. You're just snipping the tops of it off. So you want to make sure the grain is going, as they say, downhill. Now, that's not always easily achievable, but you just have to kind of look at your boards and figure out which way to send them. So this one, I'm going to arrange these to start with so that I always grab them, but I'm going to just draw an arrow pointing in the direction I want this to go. So I just drew a little arrow on the side here. This way, please. And then, like I said, from there, it's just a matter of, well, we'll see what works. Actually, you know what? No, I was going to say I should use a heavier pin for this. I'm just going to use my pin. It's hard to see on this walnut. The pencil's fine on here, but on the walnut, it's very hard to see. So for this one, and I'm going to point them all in the same direction so that I know that they feed this way. So when I grab them, I know which direction I'm supposed to be feeding them. So arrows going this way. This one doesn't really have a grain direction on there. And that's why I said some of them that just kind of meanders. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think this will be okay going this way. The big thing is if you get one and you start getting chip out as you're sending it through, don't send it through that direction again. Flip it and see if it's better going the other direction, because sometimes you may have everything going the way you think you're supposed to, and the reality is it's not. It's actually going to be going the other direction because grain just sometimes it just does what it wants to do, and you don't get a choice. Oh, wait, see, I can't do it that way because I need the flat end. So is this, okay. And this one's undulating, so we're going to go this way. Big arrow on that one. This one has an arrow on there. This is my last board right here. You can't really see what I'm looking at, can you? You can go a little wider here. There we go. That's as wide as I get. Anyway, I'm just looking at these and figuring out where the grain is flowing because I have to feed it through this side down. So this side has to be down, so it's either going to go through this direction or this direction. So this one is going to go this direction. And I'm going to put that little arrow up this way so I always know. I mean, this is a lot to do when you're getting ready to do this kind of stuff, but I find that sometimes it just saves you work in the end. This one's kind of screwy, so we're going to try it this way and see if it works. We may have to flip this one around. That you don't always get a good downhill grain direction, and so you just go with what you got. And this one I've already got. All right, let's run one and just see if I've got the depth set correctly. And no comments, so just checking the board. So here is an interesting thing about doing uh, running wood through different species of wood through trying to get the same height. As I pass these through, I'm taking a measurement. I've got my calipers here and I'm just taking a measurement off of the boards. Now you would think because I'm running them through all at the same setting that I would be getting the same cut width, but that's not the case because walnut is much harder than cherry. So the blade is not, the rollers aren't pushing as hard or as, I don't know how to explain it. You get a deeper cut on the cherry. So the cherry boards are 0.98. The walnut board is 0.993. So basically a tenth of an inch almost more of thickness on these walnut boards, even though I'm running it through at the same setting. So yeah, 0.982. Well, it's a hundredth. I'm sorry, not a tenth, but yeah, so this one, 0.99. So it's basically a hundredth, not a tenth. It's a hundredth of an inch thicker because that blade's not quite doing as deep of a cut on that walnut because it's a harder wood. So you kind of got to watch that when you're running through. The walnuts will probably need a couple of passes more than the cherry does. Now I'm going to turn off this fan. I'm going to turn a fan on over here. It is right under this camera because it's getting stinking hot in here. And yeah, I'm getting quite warm. So I'm just going to turn, I've got a little directional fan right there. And I've just got that blowing at me. I'm also going to walk over here and check my computer really quick. Check the time. It's 12:47. We're looking good on time here. Let me open this up. And okay, we look good here. No, nobody in the chat, nobody doing anything. So I just want to make sure because I've had that happen a couple of times where my chat has filled up with people and they're like feeling ignored. And I don't want anybody to feel ignored. But anyway, that's basically this is the process now. So we're at even at 0.98, right? We need to get this down to 0.75, and which means we need to take off almost a quarter of an inch, 0.23 inches. And that just comes from running these things through time and time again. I don't like to take giant cuts off of my boards. I think it just works better when you take smaller cuts and don't make the planer work, especially because I don't have, these are kind of older planer blades, and they do a pretty good job, but not as good a job as if I had new planer blades on there. I probably should see about changing them out, but it's kind of a pain in the rear to take all this stuff off of here and change the planer blades. But it is getting to be about that time. I have to find the little magnets that I had for doing that. There's a whole thing where you have to set up magnets on the top to get the blade the perfect height. So you use the magnets and it holds the blade in place, so when you tighten it down, it's a pain. I really would love to have a helical cutter head that uses small little carbide bits that you just pop in, and wow, that's the dream. That is the dream. But anyway, let's get back to this, and it's not going to get done without me passing them through. So we're just going to keep going. But everything is working as it should. You know, we're getting progress here. I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, my cut depth, not as much on the walnut as it is on the cherry. Also, I think I've got it going through a pretty good direction here. Very little in the way of chip out. These are the grain is undulating on these, and it's very hard when it's moving back and forth to pick a grain direction to go through the planer. So especially when there's little things like anomalies like knots and things like that, they're going to create problems. And you can see right here, I've had this little knot open up on this end right here. As far as the other one goes that we had the super glue on, that is holding up really well. That was right here. And the super glue is holding up really well. We're almost down to solid wood on that. So that did what I wanted it to do, which was basically hold that together. Don't let it fly. So let's get going here. I'm not there yet, but I have to check my dust collection because if that gets full, which it is, That means I need to empty my trash bin, and then I have to empty the receptacle, and because I can't have all the stuff kicking out the back, which was what happens if everything gets clogged up. It'll kick out the back. My bucket is full. It took that long. Well, didn't take that long to do that. 5 gallons, and it's pretty full already. So it's a 5-gallon container on my little dust deputy there. And we emptied it before we started jointing some stuff. So between the jointing and what I've done so far on the boards here has filled that up to overflow capacity. And that means I need to, like I said, I need to basically take it out, take it and dump it into a garbage can. My garbage can is full, so I need to take the bag out of the garbage can, put that in the big trash can, put a new bag in, dump it in. I'm gonna do that outside so I don't get a cloud of dust inside. It's just a mess. So anyway, that's a good stopping point for today, I think, because 82 degrees in here, but I'm working hard. There's a lot going on, and but the boards are getting thin, so hopefully you can see they're getting there, right? We're not quite there. Let's take a measurement. I didn't take a measurement here yet. Oh, let's take a measurement. Let me make sure I'm zeroed. And so 0.86, and they're all going to be slightly different. 0.88. It depends on where on the board I measure it, and like I try to measure in the middle. 0.86. Like I said, the walnuts will probably be a little bit thicker here. Let's try a walnut one here. This is, well, see, no, maybe not. That's 0.85. So it also depends on where I stick it through, where I put it on there. It's a weird thing. Anyway, 0.86. So basically I'm 0.86, so I'm about 1/10 of an inch away from being milled all the way down here. Once I get that done, I can bring them over and chop them down to size and start parsing out my pieces and getting all of my my piecework assembled together into piles that I can use for the projects. And that's kind of what I do with that. Hang on, I got to turn this fan because I am just schwitzing over here. Oh, much better. Much, much better. Whew. It's amazing how much a fan can do for you. So anyway, but that's the plan, is to get these down to their 3/4 of an inch, and then we will chop some width off of them and do pretty good. I like to take light cuts. For one thing, like I said, the walnut it's just a much denser wood, so taking a heavier cut on the walnut is not really great for the wood. I could go a little bit more of a cut on the cherry. It accepts the cutting a little bit easier. It's not as hard on the machine. When I start, the difference in sound, I know you probably can't hear it because the software kind of kills all the sound, but the difference in sound from a cherry and then when I feed a walnut in, it's like it's going, and then it just kind of like, oh, you can hear it just going, oh my God, what did you just stick in there? It's the walnut. So it does make a difference. Thankfully, these are thin boards, because if they were thicker boards, it would just really be dragging on my machine right now. It does not like doing big, heavy, thick boards. One day I will have a helical cutter head in there. Well, I'll have a different planer, but it'll have a helical cutter head. And the planer I want, you can't buy anymore. I just, it was in stock for a little while. They had them and now they're gone. It was by Grizzly Tools. If you've never been to Grizzly Tools, they make all kinds of awesome woodworking tools. I don't know if this is just something that they have made and then stopped making. Oh, they got garbage on their site though. But it was in their jointers and planers. They had a jointer planer combo, 12 inches wide. So you could joint really wide boards, which is one of the things I was like, great, I don't have to cut everything to less than 6 inches, right? That would be perfect. Because you can buy wider jointers, but they just take up a lot of room. And you can see where that one fits over there. I don't have a ton of space. But if I had something that was the jointer and the planer together, that would be great. And they had one that was a 12-inch jointer planer combo. So it didn't have, the wings weren't as long, but it had a 12-inch wide deck there. And then what you would do is you would flip the wings up, and then it becomes a planer. You can raise the base up and make it a planer. And I don't even see it on their website anymore. So they do not have that. I don't know if it's something that they just can't keep in stock, because it doesn't even say coming soon. It just, they were there and then they were gone. But yeah, basically a, let's see here, a 12-inch or an 8-inch wide jointer. Let's just go an standard 8-inch, because that's a 6-inch, right? A 6-inch with a helical head is $1,300 with a helical head on a 6-inch wide, which is basically the exact same thing I've got there, right? An 8-inch with a helical is going to be $2,250. The other problem that comes with running a larger jointer is that you need a larger motor. The larger motor then requires you to have 220 instead of 120 voltage. And I'm barely outfit for 120 in my garage. You see how I have to move cords around. So I'm not really outfitted for 220, which means my probable solution for that would be to put an extension cord into my laundry room, which is right through the door here. There is a 220 plug in there for my dryer. So it might be to the point where I actually create a, if I had a 220 machine, I would use a 220 extension cord. I would plug it into my dryer, come in through here, plug it in the machine, use it. And then when I'm not using it, I would unplug it and plug the dryer back in. No doing laundry while I'm woodworking. That's basically would be the rule. But that's not my problem right now. My problem is they don't make the machine that I want, which is a shame, because even though I wouldn't be giving up any, I wouldn't gain any on the width of the planer, because a lot of people want a wider planer. They want a planer that's wider than 12 inches. Mine is 12 inches. But honestly, I don't need something 15 inches wide. I just need I need a planer and a jointer really that does wider boards. The planer is a luxury, but I'm looking in their planer section. They have planers that actually have helical heads. So they have a 13-inch 2-horsepower benchtop planer, which looks very similar to that, with a helical cutter head, which is $900. They also have a slightly less beefy one with a spiral cutter head. So there's a difference between spiral and helical, and it's the angle at which the blades are. So a spiral has little half-inch cutters that are arranged, but they're not arranged in a straight line across. They're arranged and spaced so that as you turn the little cutter head, they're arranged separately. Spiral means they actually slice at an angle. So they're put into a spiral on a cant, so that cant is actually slicing the wood. Look up bird Sheelix head. You'll see what I mean. But they actually have a spiral cutter head that's $738. Costs less because the cutter head is not as advanced as the helical cutter head. So, but anyway, you can see that is it's $740 basically for the cheapy one. For the expensive one, for a 13-inch, $900, and that's just for the planer. So if I didn't do the jointer, I would want to do the planer. That's why I wanted that one machine. It had both of them together. It was just like best of both worlds combined in one machine, but they don't have it anymore. I think Jet still makes one, and there's another company called Hammer, but Hammer's machines are like $5,000, and I don't think I have $5,000 sitting in the back pocket right now. So anyway, tools, the world's big money pit. Anyway, that's that. Okay, what do we got here? 1:15, good place to stop, getting warm, time to go grab some lunch. I also have to go out, and my car needs to be safety inspected today because I'm running out of days in the month and it expires in July, so I probably should go get that done while everybody else is at work. And what else do I need to do? I need anything to do else? I probably need to go to the store and grab some stuff. So, my day is going to be full. I'll come back in here maybe this afternoon or in the evening and finish planing these down. They may be to their final width when we come back on Friday. Oh, Friday. Shoot. I'm not sure if I'm going to be here on Friday. You know, that might be not happening. Let me, I will check on that. Because my flight on Friday, my son and his girlfriend are going out of town, and I have told them that I would give them a ride to the airport, but they're leaving town on Friday, and they're leaving their dogs with me. So that's going to be an adventure because one of them is really sweet and nice and pretty good. The other one is it's Satan's dog. That's all I could say. Satan lost a dog, and I found it, or they found it. It looks really cute, which is why she got it, but it's Satan's dog. Anyway, so probably I won't be here Friday. I'm just going to say, because he's not answering me, because, you know, he's probably at work and he can't see his phone right now. But and I would text his girlfriend, but she works in a skiff, which is a place where you can't have phones. It's a secure place. Can't have phones there. So she won't have a phone. So I can't actually text her. And he's at work, so he's not seeing my text. But I'm pretty sure I'm taking him to the airport on Friday. So I probably will not see you until next Monday. And yeah, so I should certainly have some stuff done. Take a video of the hellhound. It doesn't look like a hellhound. It does not look like it looks like a cute little, it looks kind of like a little, like Australian cattle dog, even though it has no cattle dog in it because they had DNA test done. But it's crazy. It's a crazy dog. It'll sit there and run in circles for like 15 minutes just until it falls and passes out. And it's just a crazy dog. But anyway, yeah, I'll take a video and post a video so you can see the crazy dog because she is very crazy. Badass. I don't know that I would call this dog badass. Not the word I would use. Pain in the ass, yes. Badass, not so much. But she'll be my pain in the ass for a week while they're on vacation. So anyway, come back on Monday. I'll have the pain in the ass dogs with me, and my son's dog is beautiful. She's a white German Shepherd. She's awesome, and they get along great with my dogs because I've got a Foxhound and a Great Dane, and they all get along pretty well. But they're just, all of them together is chaos. So that'll be my life next week. But the things you do when you're a parent, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap up for today. I appreciate you being here. Slice Me Nice, always a pleasure having you in the chat. Appreciate it. Check on Friday. I might be here. I don't know because he's not answering me. I'm not sure what time his flight is. If his flight's in the evening, I'll be here at my regular time. If he's got a noonish flight or whatever, obviously I won't be able to be here for the regular time. So in that case, Monday would be the next time I see everybody. So if I don't see you until Monday, have a great weekend. Hopefully I see you Friday. All right. Everybody take care. Let me get my stuff here. Oh my gosh. Okay. My little app quit on me. That's always fun. I love it. Technology is so grand. Come on, start up for me. There we go. Okay, we're all good. Have a great week. Hopefully I'll see you Friday. If not, definitely next Monday. All right, take care.